Today we're covering Chun-Li, one of gaming's strongest, most empowered female protagonists, fighting bravely to avenge her father's death, and go back to being a young single girl, apparently. Oh, video games. Hello, Internet! Welcome to Game Theory, where, let's be honest with ourselves, we all know that Vega was the coolest, right? He had the mask and the Wolverine claws. Like, how could you not pick that guy? Well, maybe because Street Fighter 2 had such a cool cast of characters, and each one with awesome special moves. You had Dhalsim's Yoga Fire, Blanca's Electric Thunder, Zangief's balls to the face. That's what it's called, right? The teabag spin, the crotch rocket, 69 suplex. Anyway, the one that's always been the most intriguing for me and that I've literally wanted to cover for years on this show is Chun-Li's spinning bird kick. In this move, Chun-Li flips upside down, does the splits in midair, and then whirls her legs around so fast that she levitates off the ground, and then kicks her opponent in the face. She's like a helicopter made of legs. It's a cool move, but it's crazy, right? Like, there's no way for a human being to spin around fast enough that they could just fly away. Well, maybe, then again, maybe not. When you look at some of the crazy martial arts stunts that people can do nowadays, self-propelled flight doesn't seem all that far-fetched. There's only one way to find out, though, so sharpen your pencils, class. We're about to get down to the physics of Chun-Li's spinning bird kick and find out whether this is plausible or whether the bird kick lays an egg. Get it? I was pretty proud of that one. First, we should probably start with a quick lesson on how things fly. Like I said, I've wanted to cover this topic for years, but the reason it's taken so long is that while this isn't rocket science, it is helicopter science. And as a result, it takes a while to wrap your head around. Aerodynamics gets complicated real fast. Kind of like furniture construction with nothing but images complicated. But like IKEA's Hemnes, we shall overcome. Flying in the simplest sense is overcoming gravity, which in physics terms is a force. Finding a force requires multiplying the mass of an object by the acceleration of the object. If you saw the Zelda Hookshot episode, you'll remember FMA. F equals ma. The force of gravity pulls down toward the Earth, so in order to fly, you need to create a greater force in the opposite direction, which is known as lift. Airplanes and helicopters create lift through the shape of their wings, which we call airfoils. If you look at aircraft wings from the side, they tend to be teardrop shaped, with a bigger curve on the top than on the bottom. When the wings pass through the sky, some of the air goes underneath the wing, staying relatively flat, and some of the air goes over the top of the wing around the curved teardrop edge. As the air goes over the top of the wing, it clings to the shape of the wing by going up and over the rounded edge, and then turning down toward the point of the teardrop in what's known as the Coanda effect. This change in direction, when the air on top of the wing switches from moving up to moving down, is the important part. According to Newton's third law of motion, for every action, there must be an equal and opposite reaction. Like when you perform the action of eating a Chipotle burrito and are greeted with the opposite reaction in a toilet stall a few hours later. In the case of the airflow around the wings, when the air changes direction and moves downward, an opposite reaction must occur, which is the air beneath the wings pushing up. The wings are pushed up enough by that upward force that the whole aircraft then rises and flies. Truly, you are the wind beneath my wings. So do you get it? Awesome. Congratulations, because you just learned something it took engineers millennia to figure out. Isn't the internet great? Now you might be thinking, not so fast, MatPat. That's a pretty simplified version of how things fly. What about angle of attack or the Bernoulli principle? If so, hi NASA. Thanks so much for watching. Loved your work in The Martian. Great effort. Good job. Seriously though, if we were trying to build a mechanical flying Chun-Li robot, then yeah, we'd need to take some more laws into consideration. But from a purely hypothetical standpoint, our goal is to figure out whether a person can get around the forces that prevent human flight. So it'll do for our simplified thought experiment. Just don't expect me to get into my hypothetical Chun-Li robot and fly from here to New York. Weirdest flight ever. So now we want to apply all this lift stuff to Chun-Li and her spinning legs to determine how fast she has to be spinning in order to fly. But not so fast there, Mike Bison. Chun-Li doesn't fly, she hovers. Potato potato, you might say. To which I respond, who the f says potato? Like, what accent is that? Welsh? I am seriously curious. Do any of you out there actually say potato? Or do any of you out there know someone who says potato? Let's put this mystery to bed once and for all. Anyway, hovering is not the same as flying. Once Chun-Li gets off the ground, she isn't rising, she's just going forward and backward. This is actually really good news because it makes her job, and quite honestly, our job, a lot easier. For a body that's hovering, the force of gravity should be roughly equal to the lift. And as we've covered multiple times here on the show, gravity has a constant acceleration on Earth of 9.81 meters per second squared. Meters? You mean I have to know the metric system for this episode? Yes, American viewers, most of the calculations will be done in metric units, but don't worry, we'll convert them back to our cutesy English system soon, so you just sit tight. Anyway, to figure out her lifting force, all we need to do is multiply that 9.81 meters per second squared by Chun-Li's weight. Simple as that. So Chun-Li's weight is what? Damn it! Are you kidding me? Every character in this game gets a weight, but Chun-Li? It's a secret? I can know her blood type, but not her weight? It's like the world purposely trolls me. Okay, so honestly, this one is actually really hard. Because first, the quote-unquote official heights and weights of the characters fluctuate quite a bit between installments in the series. Additionally, after doing the pixel measurements across multiple generations of the game, characters aren't always scaled appropriately relative to one another, and their height constantly varies. For instance, Chun-Li's bio screen in Street Fighter 2 lists her at 5 foot 8 inches or 172 centimeters. In all subsequent games, though, she's apparently shrunken, ranging everywhere from 5 foot 5 inches or 165 centimeters to 5 foot 7, 169 centimeters. I mean, I've heard of women keeping their weight a secret, but their height too? It's just absurd. As a result, the math here kept turning up inconsistent, and I will not have another Wario is 10 feet tall situation. So here is the best solution I came up with. Women's bodies are a different density than men's, so I compared Chun-Li's build to every other female character across the series, factoring in their known heights and weights. Cammy clocks in at 5'4" and 134 pounds, 60.8 kilograms. But we all know Cammy is much thinner than Chun-Li, right? Well, kinda. I was actually shocked when I went back to the game, but apparently Chun-Li's legs have gotten a bit more, exaggerated over the years. When they first squared off in Street Fighter 2, they were much closer to being the same build. Surprised? Yeah, so was I. But without any other females to really compare against for those early games, I had to keep digging into some later installments. Rainbow Mika is just over 5 foot 6 inches in official Street Fighter 5 materials and comes in weighing 154 pounds, or about 70 kilograms. Then there's the real wild card, Laura Matsuda, who towers over everyone at 5 foot 9 inches, but then weighs in the exact same range as everyone else at 159 pounds or 72 kilograms. After looking at this data, I then went and compared her body type to real-life female athletes. Chun-Li's build doesn't fit that of, say, an Olympic weightlifter, so it makes more sense to compare her to mixed martial artists. The most famous of these is definitely Rowdy Ronda Rousey. Ronda stands at 5 foot 7 inches tall, right around Chun-Li's height, and weighs 135 pounds, which converts to about 61 kilograms. So, based on the statistics of all the other female fighters, as well as real-world research, as well as the fact that Chun-Li's body isn't too far off size-wise from any of these other fighters, I'm assuming her weight is around 155 pounds or 70.3 kilos. And honestly, don't worry, if we're a couple pounds off, it's not going to throw off the math all that much. Now that we have that number, we can plug it into our formula, 9.81 times 70.3, and we get that the force of gravity acting on Chun-Li is 689.6 newtons. And honestly, 700 newtons isn't all that much. To give you a point of reference, punches from boxers have been measured to be upwards of 5,000 newtons. So while the amount of force isn't that huge, the way we're creating it makes things a little extra complicated. We need a lifting force that'll reach 700 newtons created by spinning legs. Lifting force is a complicated equation. It's equal to the lift coefficient times the density of the air times the velocity of the blade squared over 2 times the area the wings cover. We're trying to determine the velocity of the blades, v, or in this case the velocity of her legs, and we already know the force we need it to equal, 689.6 newtons. So that leaves us with unknown area, density, and lift coefficient. The density of air, represented in the equation by Greek letter rho, doesn't usually vary that much until you get to pretty high altitudes. Since Chun-Li isn't fighting on top of Mount Everest or anything, we can use standard sea level air density of 1.225 kilograms per cubic meter. Someone call Staples, cause
that was easy.
One and done. Next, let's figure out the area part of the equation. The area the wings cover for a helicopter refers to the area of the circle the blades go around as they turn. Since Chun-Li's spinning legs resemble helicopter blades, all we have to do is determine how big of a circle she's making with the ends of her feet, and boom, we got our next variable. So to do that, we need to find the radius of the circle first, which is approximately the length of one of Chun-Li's legs from her hip down to her foot. Though no one before has calculated this exactly, we can use pixel measurements on this picture of Chun-Li in her Street Fighter 2 profile page to figure it out. So, using pixel measurements, the top of Chun-Li's pelvis is about 59.1% of the way up her body, which would translate to a leg length of about 40.2 inches or 1.02 meters. Plug that 1.02 into the formula for an area of a circle, pi r squared, and you get an area of 3.27 meters. With that, we have 3 variables down and 1 more to go, the lift coefficient. Now, lift coefficient is a constant that depends on how aerodynamic wings are, and is literally different for every single object, only calculated after running multiple tests in a wind tunnel. And let me say, fan fiction has put Chun-Li into some weird positions. Weird and disturbing positions, but not anywhere like that. So I had to talk to an aeronautics engineer to make sure that we were doing the right thing. Here's the conclusion that we all reached. Typically, the lift coefficient for helicopter rotors is between 0.5 and 0.8. Now, this may come as a surprise, but legs are not as aerodynamic as the blades of a helicopter. Shocking revelation. So if the low-end range for helicopter blades is 0.5, it would be reasonable to estimate the lift coefficient for Chun-Li's legs at 0.2. And if one of you watching out there happens to be some lift coefficient connoisseur, and you're like, oh no, it looks more like 1.55, hey, don't blame me, blame the aeronautics engineer, alright? If we plug all those values in, we'll finally get the speed Chun-Li's legs need to go to keep her in the air. 689.6 newtons equals 0.2 times 1.225 times v squared over 2 times 3.27. Solving. That speed would need to be 41.5 meters per second at the end of her feet. For us American viewers, that means she's spinning around at nearly 93 miles per hour. She would be making about 387 revolutions per minute. More than 6 full spins every second. Oh yeah, she's also upside down and doing the splits. That is insane. But just how insane? Let me explain what this really means. Well, to put it bluntly, both her legs would get dislocated every time she performed the move. Or I suppose the first time she performed the move. She ain't getting time to pop those suckers back into place during the fight. Let me explain. As her legs start to spin, they would be experiencing a tremendous amount of force. Centripetal force. The force created as they accelerate around the circle. You know how when you swing a stone around your head on a string and then cut the string, the stone goes flying off in a straight line? Well, in this case, the stone is Chun-Li's legs, and the string that got cut is the connection between her legs and her hip. That's a pretty picture. To calculate the strain that would put on her, this area, let's call that the rotor head. That's the official helicopter term. It's the mass of the leg times the velocity it travels squared over the length of the leg, aka the radius of the circle. So all we need here is the weight of one of her legs. According to the book Human Body Dynamics, Classical Mechanics, and Human Movement, 16% of the body's weight is in one leg. On Chun-Li, we can estimate it's probably a bit closer to 20%, and that's a low estimate. Plugging in those numbers, you get a centripetal force of almost, get this, 24,000 newtons. Let me translate that for you. The force of a professional baseball batter hitting a fastball thrown at 90 miles per hour, or 40.2 meters per second, is around 18,400 newtons. An equivalent of 4,000 pounds of force on the ball. Chun-Li's helicopter legs are delivering 6,000 newtons more than that. As we covered in her Zelda hookshot video, that's enough to dislocate a limb, but it's not enough to rip it clean off. She'd get one chance to pull off her spinning bird kick before just walking around all jelly-legged. Except here's the thing, one chance is all she would need. Like I just said, 24,000 newtons of force is more than a baseball batter hitting a 90 mile per hour fastball. Think about that force being directed straight into your face. She'd one-hit KO any opponent who came her way. According to the Journal of Neurosurgery, 2,300 newtons is all you need to crush a human skull, and she's delivering 10 times that amount with her foot. And if the skull wasn't crushed, it might just be kicked clean off, like a gory soccer ball. Cadaver data shows that it takes 1,500 newtons to break the C2 vertebra, so the neck would snap instantly. Muscles and skin would rip, and the head would go flying. She'd tear through the ranks of bison in no time as long as her legs were able to withstand the pain of popping in and out repeatedly. Forget One Punch Man, anime's got a new hero, and her name is Chun-Li, one-kick woman. But hey, that's just a theory. A game theory. Thanks for watching.